What's going on, guys? If you don't already know, my name's Chris. This is Bourbon of the Week. We give you reviews. We keep it simple. This week we have Bloody Butcher out of New Liberty. This is a local pickup out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I gotta be honest with you, well, synthetic cork, I don't like that. Aged 9. 9 what though? Months. Don't pick this up thinking this is a 9-year-old bourbon. This is 9 months old, which means it's barely spent any time in the barrel there. But everybody knows before we get started on all that, time for the traditional sip. This is not going to go well. So as you can probably tell by my initial reaction, this isn't going to do that well, at least not off the rip. Let's get into it though. New Liberty Bloody Butcher Bourbon Whiskey, 95 proof, aged 9 months. Now this threw me off. I was actually recommended this to me by a gentleman at my Fine Wine and Good Spirits. I shop there a lot. He told me to try this out, and guess what? I won't be listening to him anymore. I will still attend your establishment because there's not many other places I can go. But 9 months, not 9 years. When I picked this up, I thought it was 9 years. I thought I was getting something good. I honestly thought, I didn't do any research behind it before I pick it up, which I normally do. Being 9 years, I thought it was going to be a sourced product. I was like, there's no way Philadelphia New Liberty is putting out any type of 9-year-old bourbon without me knowing about it up until now. But I was wrong. It's 9 months. Has to be age stated because it's under the 2-year mark. And it's just very young. You can get that right off the bat. The 95 proof is harsh on the initial sip. The second sip isn't as bad, but it's still way too much of an ethanol kick for what you're getting here. Especially because, and we're going to get behind the name on this in our Bourbon Bomb of the Week, the corn that they use on this is predominantly a corn mash bill on this. It's also got malted rye and malted barley. They don't give us an exact mash bill, but it's predominantly corn. So you would think it would have a sweetness to kind of mellow out that ethanol kick. But it doesn't do that. It has the sweetness. It doesn't mellow out the ethanol kick. For a 95 proof, 9-month-old bourbon, drinkability on this is not going to get a very good score. I'm going to give it like a 5.2, and I think that's honestly being generous for this. It's actually weird. It kind of sips like a scotch. I've only had a few scotches, but how it has that... Scotch is supposed to be extra smooth. That's like the whole thing behind scotch. It's supposed to be easy drinking, smooth, smokiness, peatiness. And that's kind of what this is like gearing me towards. It's more of a scotch taste. But then the ethanol kick's still there, so there's no real point in making it taste like a scotch if it's going to still have the ethanol kick. 95 proof. I'm going to give this the 5.2 that I think it deserves. And again, I think I'm being generous with that. Next on this, we're going to get into taste. And the taste on this is just as bad as the drinkability. There's no real, other than the smoky oaky that I was talking about with like that scotch taste, which is really what this is opening up to seem like. It's trying to be more of a scotch than a bourbon. Maybe that's what they're going for. Very smoky, very oaky at the end. Sweetness at the beginning, but nothing like, not your traditional bourbon sweetness, not your vanilla caramel or oak. Maybe a little bit of vanilla, but definitely no caramel. No brown sugar on this at all. It's very light. It doesn't even, it wants to be oily, but it doesn't have a good mouthfeel. It's very thin, very light. No real good flavors. And for a 95 proof, you're like, this almost drinks taste-wise like an 80 proof. Like it's very watered down, but yet you still have the ethanol kick from it. I don't like it. It also has that same craft flavor that I always get on craft bourbons that I don't understand what it is, that flavor that I'm getting from this. And I almost feel like it's a pot still. I don't even know if they use a pot still, but it's the same type of flavor that I get from the pot still. But yet nothing blends well here. There's no progression through flavor profiles. You know, you like sweets, a little bit of rye spice, and then into the oak. You get a little bit of age at the end, but you're getting none of that here. It's only 9 months old, so you're not getting any age at the end. Very light. You can see it right in the color how young it is. Right when I poured this, I knew it wasn't going to get that age statement behind it because 9 months in the color. So that's what you're going to get. Taste on this. Let's give it one more sip and see where it falls. Very dry as well. Dries out the mouth, the back of the tongue, dries it out immediately. But I don't want to come back to this. And then that oak, it's more like a tobacco. That tobacco / smoke, overpowering at the end. Not good. Sits in the back of the palate for way too long. I'm going to give this I don't even want to rank it. This is like, you ever see people who talk about drain pours? I hate to do this to Philadelphia. I really hope, and I don't even know what score I gave Wiggle. Wiggle coming out of Pittsburgh. I hate Pittsburgh. We're over here in Pennsylvania or in Philadelphia. Big Flyers fans. I got the Flyers stuff. Hate the Penguins, all that, whatever. I know season's over. Let it go. But I hope this score is better than Wiggle, but I don't think it's going to. From what I remember on the Wiggle side of things, it did better than this. I'm going to give this like a 4.1 when it comes to taste on this. So last but not least, as you know, the most upsetting part on all of this is going to be the price on this, because quite frankly, this could be $1.50 and it's not worth the price. It's terrible. It's not good. It's what they call a drain pour. That's where I think it belongs, in the drain. I don't even think I could mix this with anything. I wouldn't make an old fashioned out of it. It'd be a terrible old fashioned. Wouldn't put it in a Manhattan. And I hate that I keep crapping on craft distilleries, that I'm saying that they're not great. Some craft distilleries know what they're doing. Some craft distilleries, younger, newer distilleries, New Riff, awesome stuff. Penelope, they understand the concept that they need to get some age behind their product, so they're sourcing their product for now. Don't put out a 9-month bourbon just because you want to put out a 9-month bourbon. This is not what you want to do. Nobody's going to come back to it. Maybe when New Liberty starts putting out like a real aged 5, 6, 7-year-old bourbon, I might come back to it. But it's just, you almost feel like you're just trying to grab at what you can get. They got me. They put the 9, they put the months real small so you can't see anything on it. They go with the whole Philadelphia vibe. They got this whole cool looking Bloody Butcher, which we're going to go over in a minute. It just seems like, to me, they're trying for a money grab real quick. See what we can get, put out whatever we can get, and take the money as we can. I guess it worked because I bought one, unfortunately. At $50, I'm going to give this like a 2.1 when it comes to price. I don't think it even deserves to have a price on it, but maybe there's a worse bourbon out there that costs more, so I got to leave some wiggle room. 2.1. So while I add these scores up, let's send it over to this week's Bourbon Bomb of the Week so we can learn a little bit more about the name behind Bloody Butcher Bourbon. So for this week's Bourbon Bomb of the Week, we're going to talk about why it's called Bloody Butcher Bourbon. And that's because they use a specific strain of corn that originated from the 1800s when white settlers came over and mixed corn with the Native American corn that was already here. This was probably done somewhere down in the Virginia area, and there's only so many people that are still growing this type of corn to this day, and that corn is called Bloody Butcher corn. Now it's called that because the white kernels actually get red flakes on them, which represent the Bloody Butcher's apron, which is Bloody Butcher. They have the white apron, and then they obviously get the red specks on it when they're cutting up the meat. So there's only a few families that grow these to these days, one of which there's a pretty cool story behind. Let's get into it. So one of the families that still grows this corn today is the Meadows family, and the history behind this is kind of a little bit of a neat story. So there was a woman by the name of Betsy Gibson. She actually got kidnapped by the Native Americans. She was half white, half, I'm gonna mess this up, Potawatomi? I think I'm close. She was kidnapped at the age of 10, and she actually befriended the Native Americans that kidnapped her. She took a little bit of the culture with her when she actually ran away a year later. One of the things that she learned, Bloody Butcher's corn. So this is the red corn. It's white corn with red flakes on it. Like I said, matches the Bloody Butcher's apron. So she brought this back to her family. I know what you're thinking, Gibson, you said Meadows. She married into the Meadows family, and now to this day, some 200 years later, they're still growing this type of corn. It's kind of a dying type of growing agriculture thing. Apparently there's a bunch of different crops that are still to this day being grown that maybe aren't mainstream, but a lot of these families have adopted these things over these years, and they're still growing it to these days, the Meadows family being one of them. So without that, we wouldn't have Bloody Butcher corn. So if anything, I'm going to blame them for why I'm drinking this right now. So here's to you, Meadows family. Cheers. It's just not good. So there you have it, the Bloody Butcher corn and how they make the Bloody Butcher bourbon. Now this corn is actually a lot more expensive than your regular corn, which is why a lot of companies aren't using it to make bourbon. And they use it for a lot of other things other than bourbon. I hope they stop using it to make bourbon, at least with this company, because they don't know what they're doing. This came in at a 3.80, sitting at the bottom of the list where it belongs. I don't know how you can really recover from this as a bourbon company. Now I've heard New Liberty puts out a lot of good other spirits. I haven't tried any of them myself. So if you see this one on the shelf, I would pass on it. If you ever see it outside of Pennsylvania, I would pass on it. If you want something good from Pennsylvania, I wouldn't say it's great. Stick with the wiggle for now until I can find you something better. But 3.8 is where this is going to fall. Don't love it. Don't try it. That's where we're going to put it. So that's going to be it for this week's Bourbon of the Week. Make sure you check me out on Instagram at Bourbon of the Week. We drop an image of the bourbon every Tuesday that we're going to review that very next day. You can go on and try and guess the score that I'm going to give it. If you guess closest, you can get a shout out on the channel as well as entered in a monthly drawing to try and win a cool prize here from the channel. Also, check me out on Patreon and Discord. Both of those links are down below. If you want to join our Discord, we talk bourbon all the time. Tell me what you're sipping on. Tell me what you like. Otherwise, don't drink and drive. Drink responsibly. Stay healthy. Stay happy. Stay drinking. Cheers, y'all.